Adeptus Custodes have got me excited again, and for all of you fans of the finest of the Emperor out there, well, I've got a little bit of content for you today for the first time in quite a while, so I'm really excited about talking about the Custodes. So we recently had the preview of all the new 30k and 40k plastic custodian models, the updated stuff, and that just got me really interested, so I decided to start digging into Custodes a little bit again, and today I've got two lists that I really want to talk about. One is a list that has been popularized very recently. One of the members of our channel, one of my clients, has recently done exceptionally well with it. So I'm going to break that one down for you. You've probably heard of it. And then the other is one that I actually just created, and I just took it to an RTT this past weekend, and I crushed with it because it was really exciting. And it is something that a lot of you guys might not really expect because it all has to do with war gear and how war gear can really change games. So let's talk about these two lists, and I'm also going to mention a little bit about how I feel about Custodes in the current meta. So let's just start with that, actually. So I have traditionally, over the course of 10th edition, been relatively bored with Adeptus Custodes. I think the rules have been quite boring, which is why you haven't really seen me playing them this edition, even though it was my primary faction from 9th edition, where I was a Shadow Keepers. Man, long gone are the days where I could 6-inch heroic intervene with my Blade Champion who ignored invulnerable saves. Oh, glorious. Anyway, now that we're in 10th edition, I have traditionally not been super excited about the Adeptus Custodes, but there have been some very interesting things that have developed as the balance setups have gone on. So I have an undefeated Custodes list. I mean, it was only one tournament, but there was a lot of things to build off of, and I think it's really going to bring a lot of information to you guys. But let's start with the popular list. I'm going to start with the popular list. This is going to be the triple land raider list that we're seeing in the Talons of the Emperor detachment. And for those of you guys who don't know about it, yeah, it's triple land raider list in Talons of the Emperor. And it's actually very interesting in the current meta because it causes a lot of problems. Now, the meta that we're currently in is a meta where elite infantry reigns supreme, and we're currently starting to shift into a meta where people really want to start destroying monsters and vehicles. But the monsters and vehicles that people are really starting to tech for are Satan, not land raiders. And this is where things get very interesting about this particular Talons of the Emperor's list. So this Talon of the Emperor's list is a tried and true freaking stat check army, but it has a really cool mechanisms due to the unique nature of the Talons of the Emperor detachment. First off, these land raiders are going to end up with feel no pains against mortals, which means if the Drukhari with their haywire wants to start blasting you, well, you're going to have a feel no pain against all those mortals that are coming out, which is a really big difference. Also, the T12 breakpoint on the Land Raiders is exceptionally critical for a meta that is currently made to destroy T11 Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights, and a meta that is also preparing to deal with T11 Satan. This is a very important factor when we're talking about how durable these Land Raiders actually can be. Now, stack that in your Talons of the Emperor, the fact that you have reactive moves, so we can get our infantry out holding the point, your opponents move forward to grab the point, you react and move back inside the Land Raider. It creates a really big issue for people who are trying to deal with your Adeptus Custodes, because your Adeptus Custodes models, which are typically just going to be guard spam, are going to be these 3 wound T6 infantry with a 2-up armor save. These are the guys that your opponent wants to obliterate with, say, exocrines, and they want to kill with inceptors with the big flat 3 damage shooting. That's where you want to be killing Adeptus Custodes. But with this reactive move, it allows you to grab an objective, and then when your opponents come to take the objective off of you, it allows you to no longer be on the objective, meaning you're no longer visible, which can really screw up the prioritization of how people are going to try to kill your models. So effectively, here's the deal: we're going to run. I actually have a list here for you guys to look at, and there's several variations of this, but this will be basically it, give or take a model. So if we look at it, let me just kind of center my screen here for just a second. Pardon me. All right, so if we look at it, effectively, you're going to have 6 units of guard. And in this particular list, we've got 3 units of 5 guard with spears, and there's going to be 1 model in each one of those 5 mans that has the Misericordia and the shield. The shield is actually really important because it gives the additional OC, but it gives you the ability to break up a damage 3 attack into 2. So what I mean by that is normally if a damage 3 attack goes through, it kills a Custodian Guard. But with that shield, you can soak up 2 damage 3 attacks, which is actually a very big deal when it comes to the longevity of these units. So we're going to take the Misericordia, or the shields with the Vexillus, pardon me. with those 4 units, and the other 4 are just going to be spears. These guys who are just going to be brawling for us. Then we're going to have 2 units of prosecutors, 2 units of witch seekers. Now these prosecutors and witch seekers have a very important job. They're there to provide a aura of 5 up, feel no pain against mortal and psychic attacks to all of your custode, including the land raiders. So their job is basically just not to die. Then we're going to have 3 venerable land raiders, which is it's a lot of land raiders. Now the shooting is not nearly as good as you might think. All right, yeah, it hits on 2 las cannons, but it's still an AP3 las cannon with no rerolls. And then lastly, you're going to have Inquisitor Draxus as, generally speaking, the only character. Now, I think if I was going to run this list, I would probably end up putting in a Valerian, because I think Valerian gives you a lot of power in the current meta, especially when people do get into you in the meta. But I'm not running this list. This is a client's list. This is a fairly common list that we're seeing out in the meta right now. So I'm kind of explaining to you the way it works. So more or less, you're going to have your 3 units of land raiders. There are 3 land raiders, and they're all just going to go on out. And your opponent is going to have to deal with 3 land raiders. Now, what are the big things that deal with land raiders in the meta right now? Well, there's really not that much. You've got your Chaos Knights, your triple Gatman Chaos Knights, but those guys are Strength 6 AP 2 damage 2. That's not great into T12 with a 2-up armor save. It's just not. Now, of course, one of them will be ignoring cover. They will be able to kill land raiders, but they're going to have to focus fire a lot on the land raiders in order to do it. In addition to that, if they are killing the land raiders, that means that they're not doing anything about the super devastating rerolling wound rolls, Adeptus Custodes that are on the battlefield. So it creates a massive stat check to a lot of armies that are really not teched for it. You have Inquisitor Draxus. Inquisitor Draxus has some of the greatest anti-infantry shooting in the entire game, which stacks exceptionally well with the Custodian Guard, because the Custodian Guard, once per game, get to shoot twice. And if they're standing on an objective that they control, they will grant the unit reroll wound rolls, which will allow Inquisitor Draxus to start fishing for those oh-so-sweet devastating wounds. Activate the reactive move. They pop back into the Land Raider. It's impossible to kill them when you're charging into them. They get out, do it again. So it creates a very, very powerful stat checky list that a lot of people are having a blast with, and it seems to be very, very powerful. Now, there's certain matchups that it's not necessarily the best into, but in teams in particular, it's one of the better defenders list out there. And for singles, you can really screw up your opponent's game plan if they think that they're just going to kill these land raiders and kill all these custodes, because it's a different type of list where your custodians don't die. Neither do your land raiders. So they survive a little bit longer than your opponent is really expecting them to, which allows them to bring the pain. Now, I want to talk about the list that I'm more excited about now. And this is the list that I actually brought this past weekend to an RTT, and I did end up winning. I actually didn't think I was going to be all that competitive with it, but it turned out that, honestly, yeah, it was pretty freaking cool. So this is a shield host list. And what makes this super, super interesting is I ended up taking axes on a lot of my models. Now, a lot of people think that axes are just typically bad in Warhammer 40,000, and honestly, I was one of those people. I was pretty much adamant, oh, it has to be spears. If you're not taking spears, you're an idiot. Well, I was wrong, and I'm happy to admit that it was wrong. So what I did in this list is, this is a shield host list, so this is the detachment where I can get myself either crits on 5s in melee, or I can give the army +1 AP in melee. Now, the reason why the axes work in this list in particular is that I typically will choose +1 AP, because I find that the +1 AP on a flat damage 3 weapon is brutal. Absolutely, absolutely brutal. It means that you can go into things like Victor's Honor Guard. If they do an armor contempt, now they're saving on 3s instead of 2s, and every single time they fail a save, a model dies, which becomes hyper relevant. Also, you're taking yourself to the strength 9 instead of the strength 7 on the spear. It means that suddenly these guys are getting wounded on 3s with their -1 to be wounded instead of 4s. So it's actually a really, really big breakpoint for a lot of your elite infantry out there. So I like it a lot. Against most of your other elite infantry out there, Blade Guard vets, things like that, strength 7 to strength 9 means you're wounding on 2s, not 3s. The AP2 is typically always enough to get them down to their invulnerable saves, because elite infantry will always have invulnerable saves, basically except for Victrix anyway. So that is fantastic. That's all you need, and it is absolutely incredible and has done a really, really cool job. So the way I outfitted this army, we've got Trajan Valorous, and he's running solo. I'll explain what he does in a moment. We've got the Blade Champion. I mean, he's a Blade Champion. He's going to be running with the Custodian Wardens. We have one Shield Captain in Alaris Terminator armor with the Panopta specs enhancement. This is the enhancement that allows his unit to ignore cover. Now, this is actually critically important. I kind of feel bad running this guy because he's almost like 130 point tax, so I can take my 5-point enhancement, but man, he does work. Then we have one 5-man squad of Custodian Guard. There's going to be one Shield and Vexilla on there, basically for the exact same reasons. That's why we have it in the Land Raider detachment. The Talons of the Emperor, the last list we spoke about. I have a 5-man unit of Alaris Custodian Terminators. In this unit, I have 3 axes and I have 2 spears. Yes, I mix them, and I mix them for a variety of reasons. It's so that no matter where I am, I'm not actually going to be bogged down into any particular type of profile. I have the 2 spears so I can increase the amount of attacks that are being put out, and I have the 3 axes so that I can really hammer all of those elite infantry and nasty monsters, because your Alaris Terminator's native ability is that it allows them to reroll all wound rolls against monster, vehicle, and character units. So if you're going into those Victrix, well, yeah, you're wounding them on 3s, strength 9, T4, but -1 to be wounded, but I'm also re-rolling wound rolls, right? If you're going into the, Tyrannofex, which, hint, I did go into, AP2, strength 9, re-rolling wound rolls is very, very, very important to be able to do. So, then I have one 2-man of Alaris Custodians. This one ran spears because I took that one specifically just to go deal with more like skirmishy things. Then I had a unit of Custodian Wardens, a 5-man, of course, a Vexilla in there, and I gave every single one of them axes. This was the thing that really surprised me. This unit was so much more fun when I took it with axes than it was when I took it with spears, because now this unit's job no longer was just to survive for a turn on an objective. This unit became a nuclear bomb. This unit went and tore down a Tyrannofex, which was awesome. It was so cool to see. It ripped through a Tyrannofex and a Psychophage in a single turn. It also had a turn where it charged into like a unit of Zoanthropes, and it dealt like 27 wounds at flat damage 3 into a 6-man squad of Zoanthropes. It was actually kind of ridiculous the amount of damage that these guys were actually able to put out when I gave them the axes, and I absolutely loved it. And I was able to stage them out there to go become that nuclear bomb because they're freaking Wardens. So in the turn that your opponent really wants to focus fire them down, pop your Fiona Bang. So I actually really, really loved this unit. It was really, really valuable. And I loved having the Alaris Custodians in here because they gave me the board control. They gave me the ability to teleport across the battlefield. The 5-man with the captain was always available to be able to just nuke whatever big infantry unit needed to be nuked, because their shooting is absolutely insane against infantry squads, especially when you stack that ignore cover on them. Because the unit's so big, it's actually very often close to impossible to ever shoot your opponent without them getting cover. So having the ignore cover on them makes that a real AP1, which dramatically changes the results that they have when they're doing shooting. It also means that now suddenly they sneak damage through on your monsters and vehicles that your opponent's not expecting to get snuck through. AP1 ignoring cover with re-rolling wound rolls, even though you're wounding on 6s, it's such high volume of shots, seeing as 66 blast, strength 4, AP1 damage 1, and then it's going to be an additional 12 strength 4, AP1 damage 2 weapons, with your full rerolls to wound against your monsters, vehicles, and character units, tends to mean that you're going to be sneaking through a lot more damage than your opponent is actually expecting. After that, I ran 2 squads of prosecutors. These girls were there to go grab objectives early. These girls were there to hold home field, just do stuff generally like that. The Witch Seekers, which were extremely important, these girls, their purpose was to go get my area denial turn 1, because you have to be able to get area denial with something, and I'd much rather do it with a 45-point unit than a 275-point unit. So Witch Seekers were there to get my area denial, get my early tempting target, things like this. I also used them with their scout maneuvers to get a very, very sneaky turn 1 shots off on a Drukari army, and then I was also able to set up a great overwatch for them, which was actually kind of devastating to my opponent. So Witch Seekers are just marvelous. Now, this is one that a lot of people always blink at. One Caladius gravity tank. This Caladius gravity tank is actually quite important. Even though I hate Caladius gravity tanks, it's true. I'm not going back on that. I still hate them. Doesn't mean I don't think they're a little bit necessary right now. I do take one Caladius gravity tank. Lots of people think that you need to take 2, but all you have to do is reframe your mindset here. So I learned this from my Dark Angels armies that I was running. I actually only need 1 Lancer in those armies. The reason why I would run 1 Lancer isn't to dominate the firing lanes and dominate the long-range shooting game. Not at all. The purpose of running that single Lancer was so that when I was staging up, my opponent couldn't just take their Rogodorn-style unit and just move it into the open. they would have to think about, oh crap, he actually does have that extremely efficient anti-tank or anti-tank unit there that will be able to potentially pop me, or at least deal enough damage to me that his infantry can kill me. So I took the exact same thought process with the Caladius Grav Tank. I took the Caladius Gravity Tank not to win the shootout war, but to stop my opponent from moving into the critical lanes. And it was awesome at that. It was also able to nuke something before it dies. So typically when you take a tank, like a solo tank like this, whether it's a solo Caladius or a solo Lancer or solo whatever your army is, once you expose it, you need to expect it to die. Its job is over once it's exposed. Its entire purpose is to make your opponent not move into the open firing lanes. And if they do, punish them for it. After you expose and punish them for it, you got to understand that they will nuke it. It's okay. It's not a problem. It's fine to have your unit nuked because it's already served its purpose by controlling where your opponent is able to safely move across the battlefield. That is it. Now, one of the cool things about the Caladius Gravity Tank is with its 2-up armor save, sometimes it actually just lives. 2-up armor save, 5-up invuln. It just lives when your opponent does try to kill it, which means you do get to use it a second time. But I would never try to make it survive. I'm never going to waste CP on like rerolling the armor save or the invuln save or anything like that. And then lastly, we have the Calidus Assassin, who is goated. She is here to ensure that when you're playing Drukhari Spectacle of Spite, their charge in the movement phase thing costs 3 CP. She's here to make sure that when Gazkul was on you and you have to charge into Gaz's unit, it's going to cost them 3 CP to fight on death, not 2. Without her, the army does kind of collapse. So what this army does is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 individual units, because Trajan always goes solo, because Trajan is unbelievably good in Shield Host solo. Like, once per game, he just goes to 12 attacks, sustains on 5s, straight 10, AP2, damage 3. That is disgusting. Or, I mean, depending on the matchup you're in, you can give it AP3, damage 3 instead of crits on 5s. Not to mention, I tend to like having him do the Deep Strike, because since I've got 2 Venatari Custodians in Deep Strike as well, you could do the whole triple rapid ingress trick. So I could rapid ingress him into a position, and then I can also rapid ingress Venatari and Venatari into positions. Very few armies are ever actually going to be prepared for the triple rapid ingress threat. Now, for those of you who don't quite understand the way this works, your Venatari Custodians have an ability that will allow them to use the rapid ingress stratagem for free, even if another unit has already used it. So yes, if you spend 1 CP to rapid ingress Trajan, or you use the Alaris Captain's ability to discount the rapid ingress to bring him onto the battlefield for 0 CP, you can then rapid ingress both of the Venatari in the exact same time, which is exceptionally powerful because it forces your opponent to screen not 1, but 3 critical rapid ingresses in their turn 2 or turn 3, whenever you so choose to do it. So this army hits incredibly fast, it hits incredibly hard. The Wardens with the Blade Champ get to advance and charge, and you're going to be rapid ingressing 3 units in the same turn. So basically, you get to aggressively stage with 4 units that can all conceivably be charging in the next turn without worrying about crazy charges. This is a very, very powerful way to hit your opponent. You've got the tools to deal with big monsters in the forms of either lethals on 5s or just, AP2 damage 3 weapons, and you've got the ability to deal with anti-elites exceptionally well because you've got all that flat 3 damage basically all over the place. So I had an absolute blast with this army. Really no regrets about it at all. Like, it had plenty of mission play. The Calidus Assassin made sure that you could screw up your opponent's CP usage. It was pretty freaking dope. I might actually take it again because I was so pleased with the way it operated. It was actually pretty fun. It was fun being able to pull in like those triple rapid ingresses with the Venatari. Being able to actually deal with the flat 3 wound infantry was very interesting, and I kind of loved it. Trajan was actually super, super clutch in a ton of different situations. One of which was Lilith had to charge into him because I was playing against Drukhari in the finals, and Lilith and all of her witches had to charge Trajan because if they didn't, Trajan wasn't going to die, and Trajan was going to go do bad things just to wreck them. And so he did, and when Lilith and all of her witches came in, and they were basically guaranteed to kill a solo unit like Trajan, I just went 2-up invulnerable save once per game. I almost always double his attacks once per game, but this time I decided to go Moment Shackle, 2-up invuln, and he just doesn't die. So if you need a unit that just doesn't die for a turn, boom, Trajan. That's so critical. And then I also have another unit that just doesn't die for a turn. Boom, Wardens. The list was actually super fun to play. And if you've been kind of in the Custode like trenches like I have, and you are not excited about them, this is awesome. Give it a try. So anyway, that's how our Triple Land Raider list is currently working, and this is how my list that I just went undefeated with worked. So give it a spin. Let me know your thoughts on it down below. I cannot freaking wait until we get the rules update for the Custodes, which Warhammer community promised when they also released the announcement for all the new plastic models. So once that comes out, hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more Custode content. This is the first time I've been excited about them in quite a while, and if my excitement stays, then more Custode stuff. So, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Until next time, crop on. Bye-bye.